Hello, everyone, and welcome to our grand season finale here on The Remedy. I'm your host, Pastor D, and I am happy to be with you today. We have a beautiful show reserved for you, a wonderful topic. So, without any further ado, let's go. Mm. Well. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Listen, guys, we've made it. This is our season finale.
Woo!
I am excited. I am really excited, and I'm happy. It's been a tough year, and but here we here, guys. We are here. What, a few weeks before this year's over, right?
Yes.
So I'm really excited about that, but even more excited that God kept us alive um, through all the sickness, through all the ordeal, through all the let go of people losing jobs. We are still standing.
Mhm.
We are still here.
Mhm.
And so I am very grateful for that. What about you guys? What are you grateful for this morning?
I'm grateful that I was
Hmm?
tired.
I'm
I'm tired.
sorry, say again.
I'm grateful that I'm on winter break. I was tired.
Oh, winter break.
Yeah, she's definitely a student. Anyone else? What are you grateful for? This is season finale. What are we grateful for?
2020 is almost over.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
absolutely,
can you guys hear me?
absolutely.
Yes.
I'll go,
So
Albert. What's up?
I'm at my daughter's ballet recital, but I know it's the finale. I didn't want to not come on here, even though I look a mess. But just wanted to thank everybody for their participation in the show. We got a great platform here, being able to speak our opinions and our thoughts on different topics, some heavy, some light. Everything we're doing for the show. I can't wait for next season. I just wanted to come on here and tell everybody I love them and have a great show.
Thank you for stopping by. That is so nice. And tell your daughter that we love her. Today's her birthday.
happy
Happy
birthday.
birthday,
Happy birthday, Ayla.
Happy birthday,
Let her
Ayla.
know that we love her, we appreciate her, and we wish her a happy birthday. Okay?
Mocha,
Thank you,
how old
guys.
is she
Thank you.
today?
Should
She's
be 8,
8.
right?
She's 8.
She's 10, no? Hey,
No, 8.
8.
I think she's 10, no?
She's,
Come here,
Wait.
she's 8 going on
Don't say
30.
that.
All
How
right.
old is she?
8.
Oh, 8. Okay. I thought Ayla was 8 like 5 years ago.
Bye, Kels. Well, for me, I'm grateful for life, for health, and I'm I'm a bit apprehensive about 2020 ending because I remember 2019.
Yes.
We're like, yay, 2019 is ending, and then 2020 came, and it's been downhill from there. So to be alive is a blessing. To have health is a blessing. I'm grateful for you guys for allowing me to be in the show. For the couple of months or weeks I've been in the show, it's been great. And I hope 2021 bring us, I mean, I don't know, like closer to God, closer to family, appreciate life, because one thing I believe 2020 has taught us is life is short. If we didn't know life was short, 2020 had taught us that. So appreciate family. Do not hold grudges. You mad for 1 second because things can get worse. So thank you. Love you guys. And wait until 2021. We have a blast.
That's right. Pat, we're taking a moment. This is our grand season finale to kind of share what do you appreciate the most? What are you grateful for? What are you looking forward to?
I'm definitely grateful for life. Grateful for my family. I appreciate everyone around me. I'm hopeful for next year. Like Cynthia, I think I'm apprehensive. And just, it's to me, it's a day by day thing. So I just appreciate the moment and appreciate the fact that we're together in the show and hopefully educating people on certain topics. And just grateful to be around.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a blessing. I can tell you, this show actually took place. I guess the COVID-19 gave birth to this show. And when we first started, I didn't know where we were gonna go with it. All I know is I felt the calling to go ahead and put something like that together, so that we can reach out to those people who are at home and are looking for something to kind of keep them going. And so we wanted to provide a show not only that will be educational, but we wanted to provide a show that will also be fun. Sometimes we will laugh together. We will also discuss things that matters. And to me, that's what's important. Um, so there's another joke going around here. Luby was just coughing. So Cynthia is sending her a little text wondering if everything is okay.
So here's the thing. I thought I was on mute. And because of COVID, you're always afraid to cough. Like, somebody looks, you cough like, that cough sounds very suspicious. Right?
Yeah.
I felt it coming. I was like, okay, I'm on mute. I'm good. And then I was like, oh crap, I'm not on mute.
I'm messing with you, Louis.
And Cynthia, I just want to make sure, okay?
I'm sure.
Listen, I want to give a shout out to my family, to my wife, who's being on. I would say she's the backbone of the show in so many ways. She's the one who's always sharing the videos and making sure that we get a lot of views. So and I can see she's doing it right now already, and she's watching the show. Um, I want to give a shout out to my dad, who's my number one show watcher. He's always there. So, and to all of our Facebook family and YouTube family, we appreciate you. We thank you. It's been like I said before, I can't believe we actually reached our season finale today, which means that we will not have any more show for the rest of this year, but
You
we
mean the
will
2
be
weeks?
back. We
The
will
rest
be
of the
back
2 weeks.
by God's grace.
The rest of the 2 weeks.
Yes. But we will be back by the second week of January 2022. So, having said that, let's dive into a
The girls can
discussion
say what they're grateful for.
for today. Yeah, actually, we did. Melody and
Oh,
Wendy
but
didn't
Wendy did
say.
not speak.
Wendy didn't say
Yeah.
anything.
Oh, I think I'm just grateful for the year to be over. It's been a lot to witness, to live through. So I'm just like another year. I'm closer to the summertime, being out of school. So yeah, I'm just ready for the year to be over.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you. I mean, to all the members of the Remedy as well, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. Listen, this show is not about me, even though it says PD, but it's really PD and the crew. I couldn't do this without you guys. And like I said to you before, when one of you is missing, we feel the difference. Like today, Woody is not here, Uncle Markel is not here, Uncle Eddie is not here. We have other people who are very integral part of the show, and they are not present today. So they are missed. We miss them very much, but the show must go on, right? So today, we're going to talk about this idea of Christian universalism. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a doctrine that says basically that all sinners, whether you repented or not, um, because God is a God of love and because God is a God of mercy, that all sinners, no matter who you are, whether you love God or not, whether you want to be saved or not, you will ultimately be reconciled to God. And so the question I want to find out, I want to ask those of you who have been studying for this particular show, what are your thoughts on this idea to begin with? Let's look at some of the maybe the good side of it before we can dive into it deeper. When you first heard that statement, or when you were doing your research, what did you find out? What have you learned from this as we move forward? Anyone? Cynthia? Yes.
So there's a movie that you sent
Yeah.
us, and I watched it. Come Sunday or Sunday
Come
Come. I think
Sunday.
it's Come Sunday. Yeah, and it's pretty interesting movie that as you go through the movie, you see how he switched views based on certain scriptures. And I could see why people think that, because God is a loving God. God would never want all his children to be lost. And again, if you look at the man on the cross when he was being crucified, and when he said, remember me when you're in paradise, and then Jesus said, today you are. So it showed that even someone who never met God, but at the end of his life, he met him and asked for forgiveness, then one can assume that he has been forgiven and he's not gonna be condemned.
Mm-hmm.
And the contradictory part of it is it showed that if God does not save you, he's not a merciful God. But at the same token, if you don't know him, if you don't search for him, how can he save somebody who's not seeking him? You see? So that's my point. I mean, it's
Yeah, and we're gonna come back to that.
okay.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back to that part, but I found the movie very intriguing in so many ways. And so I want to hear from you guys your first thought on this doctrine of universalism. It sounds really good, doesn't it? I mean, it
It's really
sounds like,
good.
wow, this is really deep. Luby, your thoughts?
Yeah, it does sound good. And I have to tell you, I'm so sorry. I didn't get a chance to see the movie, but I did do some research. And, YouTube is your best friend when you're, doing several things. And at first glance, the doctrine of universalism, apparently there's universalism and then there's Christian universalism. So, and they're different thinking behind the two concepts, as well as within Christian universalism, there are different thinkings there too. So there's one, I don't want to misquote just my understanding of it. There are some people who believe that it's there. At the end result is still the same. No matter what you're going through in life or who you are, what you've done, the end result is still the same, where you will be saved.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are some people who believe that, yes, you will be saved as long as, like Jesus is the way kind of thing, but not necessarily you have to do XYZ. It's just you found God, you believe in him and you're going to be saved. There's nothing else. You don't have to, run the race or anything. You're there and everybody's coming in. And I have to tell you that sounds really good, because as Christians, the race itself is exhausting. And just trying to get your place, just trying to get your place in heaven, making sure that you've done everything you're supposed to as a Christian. And I'm not talking about your good work is going to get you where you need to, just everything that, that's required of you. That is exhausting. There are certain things that Christians cannot do. And it's like, oh, there are certain things if you do, and it's like, you Christian? Yes, I am. Gosh, struggling.
We're gonna put a pin on that. I definitely want us to come back to that, because I think it's very valid and it's important to the discussion of today. We're gonna go down to Pat. What are your thoughts on this Christian universalism?
I watched the movie last night. For me, it was confusing. And just like Luby, I went to YouTube um, just to kind of decipher from what I've seen from the movie versus what YouTube is saying. And Luby described a lot of what I've seen in YouTube. However, the whole concept to me of universalism, which I think Cynthia also alluded to, it doesn't seem so far-fetched. I can definitely understand why some people will gravitate toward it, because if you have a good God, then the whole concept of hell has always been somewhat questionable to me, because when you know that God actually can do anything and is omnipresent and can destroy Satan. So I can understand as to why people would believe in the whole notion of universalism.
Hmm.
I know we're not going too much into it, but I also understand where a certain place in the Bible, it does mention that if you do certain things, you can get punished, and this is what's going to happen. And I do think that it kind of deter you from having a relationship with God. However, Christian universalism is different because you do have a relationship. So
Hmm.
it was extremely interesting.
Hmm. Hmm. And finally, the twins. Your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, so I had watched it yesterday, like early enough, so I had time to really sit down and think about it. And at first, I was like really confused because I was like, the concept just wasn't sticking. It wasn't until I got deeper into the movie that I kind of began to resonate with what he was saying. I was like, yeah, I understand why some people would think or believe, I should say, that, everybody's gonna go to heaven. It really, your life is already set out for you, if that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, I did try to go to YouTube, but it was convoluted for me, and I was like, I'm just leave.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I I get it, but I also don't, if that makes sense. I think because like the way I understand like God and like my own relationship to him and like how I view him, it's hard for me to connect the two ideas because my understanding of God is so like deeply rooted in like free will. Like I can't see him like kind of forcing that because some people don't want a relationship with God. And like it's
Hmm.
clear. So I'm still struggling with.
Yeah.
I understand why people believe it, but it's still. So.
Yeah, and I want you to also remember this point, Melody. You talk about relationship. We will come back to that as well because that's going to be one of the discussion when we really dive into this doctrine. Can you really say you can be saved and you don't care about being saved and you don't care about being in a relationship with God or the universe or whatever. So to me it's really important. I want to say first of all that doctrine is not, it's not necessarily new. Okay. If you go back in the annals of human history, you'll find that in the third century that was a there was this thing going around with this universal reconciliation going on, and that everyone no matter what eventually will eventually be saved. They will eventually enter the kingdom of heaven because God is a graceful God. He's a merciful God. And so all that again, it's great. It's a beautiful teaching. You can't take away from the fact that indeed God is a loving God. You can't take away that God indeed wants people to be saved. I mean, it's true. The whole point of Jesus coming was so that through him the world will be saved. I'm going to give you some text so that I want you to guys to kind of think about these texts, and then give me your idea, because those are some of the texts that I would say some of the ideology for those who believe in it. Those are some of the
So he's frozen. Well, we could get so he gets back. Maybe we can embellish more on some of the thoughts that we had. Wendy, Melody.
Yeah, I had a
You had
question.
something you wanted to say.
To me, it's a bit oxymoron to say Christian universalist.
Right.
Because if you look at in the Christian realm, the whole point of Christianity is a relationship with God, is to be what at the end, to be saved, to do God's will, to love humankind, to follow his principle. And then as a universalist, it's like no matter what you do, you're going to be saved. So I could see where Melo is a bit confused because it contradicts itself.
Yeah.
Because if you go into church, you're following God rules, and then not only church, but in general, Christianity in general, and then you're telling me that I don't have to do any of that because regardless, because of his love, I'm going to be saved. To me, it's not balancing. It's a bit confusing. Sorry, Pastor, you were froze, so we continue the conversation. My question was, it's a bit oxymoron to be a Christian and universalist at the same time, because the whole concept of Christianity is to love God, to do the will of God, and at the end to be saved. And then if you look at the universalist point of view, you don't have to do any of that automatically. Whether you follow his will, you don't follow his will, you'll be saved. So
Well,
that
the premise of your question, or
Mhm.
the oxymoron part, stems from what type of Christian are you talking about? Because there are Christians who believe that all you have to do is just be saved. Like, you say the Lord's Prayer, and you're saved, and you're saved by grace, and you just have grace, unlimited grace. And so you're just saved. You
but
really,
it's still a relationship point of view. You understand what I'm saying?
right.
It's still relational, but in the universalist, maybe I'm misunderstanding what it is. You don't have to do any of that automatically.
But you're assuming the relationship stems from me constantly having a communication, because there's some, like, think about it. There's some people who you have relationships with. I have several best friends, and there's one I talk to every day. But then there's one who I've known her since I was in middle school. How we met is I was bothering her. To this day, like, I would talk to her every now and then, and we just pick up where we left off. However, if you were living in a house with me, you wouldn't even know that she's still one of my closest friends. But we have a relationship. So your premise still stems on, in order for you to have a relationship, you have to do XYZ. So that's why the Christian universalism is an oxymoron, when actuality, it depends on which Christian group are you talking to, because they just say you just have this grace, and the end result is this. As long as you believe that Jesus is the way, blah, 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 you don't have to do nothing else. I mean, my grace is sufficient, and we're going to keep on going. There's some Christians who believe that. So it's like, who are you talking to? Me, them, or her, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
And I think they touched upon this in the movie, because that had also confused me. I was like, well, if you're automatically saved, is there any reason to do any of the things? Like, in the movie, he's a pastor, and you could see him struggling with his relationship to, like, try to maintain it with God, because he's almost like, I mean, in the movie, it almost seems like he had almost like an epiphany almost. So, like, but you still see him constantly talking to him, reading the Bible. So I'm like, well, he's still maintaining this relationship with God. And it wasn't until a certain part in the movie, he was talking to one of his close friends, and he was just like, well, yeah, you're already saved, but that doesn't give you the right to sin. that part really did confuse me because I was like, why not? Almost, like not why not? I understand, like, yeah, you shouldn't do bad things. When I'm like,
but within the
what's
realm of
yeah, what's
universalism.
stopping you from doing these things? It's not like you're gonna be saved, so there's nothing. I don't want to say there's nothing stopping you. You should be a
No,
good
no, no. I
But you
get your
should
person,
be
point.
able,
I
but
get your point.
you should be able not to be able to live your best life.
Yeah.
yeah,
I think what I gather from the movie is that what anybody would go through as you're struggling to understand something, as you're struggling to accept something new, because you have to remember he grew up in a Christian home when this was not something that he. And like for instance, when he went to visit the uncle, and the uncle asked him to write a letter of character, and he didn't, and then the uncle passed away, and I felt like, oh my God, to end the letter, and he talked to the mom. So again, and I think at towards the end, he kind of felt bad about that. But I just thought I struggled that a pastor goes through to accept certain journey of life. But going back to what Cynthia had said in terms of oxymoronic, I can see why you're saying that, but I've always asked myself, if I grew up at the universalism, would I not then see the Christian religion that I follow as the one that seemed weird? Sometimes it all depends on what you grow up with, how you're gonna look at the other side of things.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are saying a lot of things that are very valid, and I want you to know that. Number one, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch the movie. It was important that for you to see it. I like the fact that you also notice that we all struggle with beliefs, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're a pastor or whoever you think you are as a church member or whatever, it's something, or someone maybe outside of the church. We all go through that. We all struggle with different aspect of what we believe or what we thought we believe, and all of a sudden, it may feel that maybe everything that I thought I understood or everything that I thought I knew about God was completely wrong, and I need to go back into the Bible and we study and research all of this. And for that, I will say it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I always say as human beings we are continually evolving. Our understanding is continually evolving. Not I can't say that the church, when I say the Christian church, I can't say that we have reached the ultimate reality of what Jesus came to do for us. We are still learning. Our understanding of God today is different. For example, I use that example all the time. All of us remember the great Martin Luther.
Mhm.
And here's a man who actually, I will say, because of him, we have we separate ourselves from the Catholic faith, right?
Mhm.
But Martin Luther, even in his great understanding of the gospel, missed a few things. Martin Luther didn't believe in the Sabbath. Martin Luther didn't believe in the book of Revelation. And when I was studying that, that blew my mind. Like, what in the world? Someone this educated, how can you miss so much? Just to show you that proof, I mean, truth, God always shows up in a way. He doesn't bless you with his truth. Well, he
Mhm.
did. He did that with Paul. But you know what I mean? He gives you his truth little by little, and as you dive into the word, your understanding of him grow more and more. You understand what I mean? So, having said that, let's talk about a few things that I think, and whether you it was in the movie or some of the things that this theory actually believes in, teach. They believe that because God is a loving God, right?
Mhm.
Um, he everyone must be saved. That in itself is not wrong, right? That everyone because when you go to the book of, for example, John 3:16, the text is clear. The text says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son." But then when you get to the second part that says, "Whosoever," so for me, that whosoever doesn't include, although it includes everyone, but that whosoever jump from being a very inclusive text to a very exclusive text, if you guys know what I mean.
Right. There are contingencies to
Yeah,
the statement.
yeah, because it feels like when you start studying and reading it, it's no longer about the world. It becomes more personal thing. That whosoever, right, is that whosoever who believes, then the promise is to that whosoever. So I kind of understand it that way. Your thoughts again, and then I also want to come back to Melody with this idea with, if God save all of us, then why should we worry about sinning, right? I mean, Paul likes that, and Melody kind of put it in a modern way, but Paul was like, "Shall we continue to sin?"
Yeah.
So we,
I'm going.
Wendy.
I mean, Wendy,
One of them.
one of the twins. Yeah, your thoughts, guys. Your thoughts. Your thoughts.
I do want to say, like we talked about this, like I think it was Cynthia, she mentioned it a little earlier when we were talking about the two men who were on the cross with Jesus Christ. One of them was saved because he acknowledged that it was Christ. The other one wasn't. So, like my mind keeps going back to that. Like it's about how you go about it. Like one of them didn't want anything to do with Jesus at all. He was chastising him at the same moments that he was dying. So if he doesn't want it, then why would God force that on him?
So
I
then
like
on
that
that
word
premise,
you
Like
use.
isn't that a form of love? Like free will is a form of love. God doesn't contradict himself. He's not.
But someone will say, "Is it really? Is it really a form of love? If you have the power to stop something, right, and you have the power to stop it, and you don't, is it really love?"
yes, we do this all
Yes.
the time as parents.
Yeah.
Thank you, Luby. Like you never see your child, right? You tell them, stop jumping, stop, because this what X, Y, and Z will happen. And then in order to show them, you allow them to get hurt, then it registers. I mean, maybe I'm not a horrible parent, but
We all
my
there.
point
We
of
all
view,
there.
because
Listen.
if I keep telling you stop, and then it doesn't register, but the moment you get hurt, oh, I should not have done it. But
Yeah.
again, God, the reason why God is a God of love, because He's on the cross dying for us. And then one of them saying, well, if you the so-called Christ, save yourself. And then the other one said, you don't realize he didn't do anything. We deserve to be there, but not him. At that moment, once he said that, it's a form of repentance. He acknowledged accountability, acknowledged that he did something wrong that caused him to be in that position. And then he said, remember me. And then what did God say? At this moment, you are. I feel like if God had saved both of them, it's just like, I'm forcing you to follow me. I'm forcing you to love me. He tells you, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. But at the same token, I'm not going to force you, because I give you the free will to choose. And your choice, every time we choose, there's consequences to whatever we choose, whether, hey, good, I'm gonna go to heaven, or bad, I'm gonna go to hell. Whichever you choose, there's always consequences. So that's why I feel like he showed us love by not forcing the guy to follow him.
And then that same vein, and in that same vein of
Oh, Lord
thinking,
Jesus.
like the idea that God is allowing you to go to hell. Isn't it worse? Like if take for example, if my dad were to lock me in the house because it was to keep me safe, I would resent him. No matter how he spins it, I would resent him for locking me in the house, even though it's to keep me safe. I'm not able to experience what I'm longing for, and some people feel that way about God. So he's not going to lock them in the house.
I agree.
What?
So I wanted to say after Cynthia and after Eddie's comments, I'm going to be very careful because I am in the Cynthia camp. Listen, I have 4 kids, okay? And all of them have the same opportunities. All of them get the same instructions. And it's you better stop doing this. You listen, I'm telling you, you better stop doing this. So one is going to listen. I already know which one that is. One is going to listen and one is just going to test me. Like, all right, buddy, good. You love it, I like it. You like it, I love it. Go ahead and jump off. And if you cry, you bet not come to me. So it's just, there's a thing there. You need to learn. But at the end of the day, if something were to happen, of course, you're as a parent, you're always going to be there to hold, to make sure that they're okay. But if the person does not want you, the person does not choose to accept the hand that you're giving them, my love for you is going to back off. I mean, my love is still going to be there, but my love is going to cause me to, okay, when you're ready, you come to me. But at the end of the day, where you go is still your choice because I made the roads available to you. I'm not going to force you to go do XYZ because you're not going to want to do it. And you're not going to see this as a form of love. So that's the whole, that's the whole part of the universalism, I guess, I don't understand because at the end of the day, like Cynthia said, or one of the girls has said that there were 2 people on the cross. One acknowledged, one patronized. And it was like, if you say who you are, then get off. The other was like, man, you don't need to be here. And God saw that. So I guess I'm confused with the whole, it just doesn't make sense to me, the whole universalism. It just doesn't make sense. Who said I want to go there anyway? Like, okay, I want to do this. All right, you let me do this. Okay, I don't want any part of you. Why would you want me? Like, it just doesn't make sense.
I want to challenge you guys a little bit more. Again, because I want us to really dive into this text a little bit. We're talking about it from a parent perspective, which is good. So now, but let me ask you, as a parent, would you allow your kids to go to hell?
If that's their choice, I have nothing to do with that.
So if you knew your kids, their entire desire is to walk into a burning building, and you can do something to prevent them from doing it, would you do it?
Of course.
That's a low.
I mean, as a mother, it's innate in us. Like, as harsh it sounds to allow your child to get hurt, it's from a parent perspective. It's not hurt where their arms are broken or their necks, like if you keep going here, you're gonna bump into this and it's gonna leave you a bruise. Or if you don't study, you're gonna get an F. That's what I'm referring to. But it's in our nature will not allow us to you see your child to go to a burning building. What you're gonna do as a parent? You're gonna jump, remove that child, and put yourself. And I see where you're going. That's exactly what Christ did for us. I mean, he took the sacrifice. He did the ultimate sacrifice so we would not be lost. But again, he allowed us to go through the journey of sinning, because the only thing Christ did not do on earth is sin. He experienced every obstacle.
Why do you think that is?
Relationship with his Father. That's the only thing I can think of. Because he had every opportunity, the same opportunity we have. He had the same he was hungry, he was homeless, he was tempted, and through it all, the one that sustained him was his relationship with his Father. And I believe that's what he wants for us. Mm-hmm. So,
okay.
Can I ask a question? And I have to say, universalism, I don't know a whole lot about it. Actually, what I thought it was, when I went to search, I realized that it was something different. So However, there are some points in universalism that there are 2 points that kind of appeal to me, because I've always had issue with the whole hell thing as to why people would even go to hell when you think of God and the Almighty and how good God is. I've always had an issue understanding that whole concept. And then I've watched people, I've observed people. Now, when you have someone that's a Christian and that pretty much go to church, have a relationship, but then the action that I see of that Christian or is definitely not what I would expect from a Christian based on some of the biblical thing that the Bible tells you to do. And then you have someone that necessarily doesn't have a relationship with God, but yet their action is more of that of a Christian action. So you would put that person in the bucket of universalism to some extent, even though that person does not really consider themselves, Christian universalism, but they don't really have a relationship. So when it comes to what would you say with these two individuals? You have one that apparently is following everything, but the action is not the same, is not what you would expect. But then you have another one that doesn't, that will literally tell you, I don't believe in God, but their action is that of a true Christian.
The Bible gives us a perfect example of that. When you study the book and you realize, for example, the rich young ruler came to Jesus and he asked, "What must I do to have eternal life?" And from the conversation, you realize, wait a minute, this guy knows the law, he studied the laws, he's been doing all of this. According to the way he responded to Jesus, everything that Jesus told him, he said, "Well, I've done all of those." And Jesus was like, "Well, one thing lacks. Go and sell what you have, come and follow me." You find that example to show that you can call yourself a Christian and do the act of being a Christian and still lack what's fundamental to the Christian life. And the story, Jesus went on and explained it to the disciples, because even the disciples was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. In that case, who can be saved?" Because Jesus is like, it's so hard for people to be saved based on the way that he was going about it. I got you, Melo. I'm coming to you. And then the second example that Jesus gave was the story of the Good Samaritan, where he's a complete stranger who sees someone in need. The religious people pass him by because they were going to church or it was a Sabbath or whatever. They can't be late to their board meeting because they are the pastor of the church. Whatever the reasons may be, they leave this person behind, and it took a complete stranger, a Samaritan, who supposedly was the nobody of the society. That's the person that took care of him or took care of that person, and pay money for someone to nurse that person back to life. At the end of the day, what Jesus was really saying is, listen, at the end of the day, it all boils down to the way that you love. I think the measure to Christianity, Pat, is not necessarily at looking at people who miss the mark, because we all do at some point, but it's in the degree of how much they love. This is where I think we can use that as a thermometer to the Christian life. How much can I show love? And here's the thing: when you truly love someone, you're not going to cheat on them. You're not going to steal from them. You're not going to envy what they have. You're not, you know what I mean? When you really think about it, love is basically, that's what God is saying to us. It's really all about love. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, and love your neighbors as yourself. If I love my neighbor, then I should not go after his wife. I should not go after his things. I should not do those things because I'm operating on the love. So if you are operating on the love, then clearly you are keeping God's commandments. You're no longer thinking about which commandment I'm breaking right now, or which commandment I'm keeping right now. It's no longer about that. It's operating under this principle of, I love my neighbors, therefore I don't want to do anything bad to them.
And you know
Okay.
what? I couldn't agree with you more. And I know, Mello, you have something to say. I couldn't agree with you more. I do believe in love conquers all. But to be honest with you, I actually think that's what universalism is about, where people believe in love conquer all and definitely don't really think that they need that umbrella of God per se. So, you know, Mello, you can go ahead, but I can see some merit in universalism, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good. Don't get me wrong. Even as a preacher, I am definitely tempted by a lot of the things that they say. But when you start diving into it more and more, you realize it does contradict with a lot of other things that are in the Bible as well. And that's where you have to draw the line. You know what I mean, Melody?
My question is sort of going back to like sin in general. If universalism was what really we were supposed to what we're supposed to believe, and of course this is from my own like mindset and relationship from God, but if that's how it is, why are we still on earth? Why aren't we just in heaven at this point? Like why are we going through another step? If God already saved us and we don't need to do anything else and like that's it, why not just have us all in heaven anyways if that's where we're supposed to be?
I was actually thinking about that too because it always like made me question like then what's the point of even still having the earth if that makes sense. Like, well, if everyone's going to be saved, just have the people. Well, I guess it does depend on your religion because I know some people believe the moment you die you go to heaven, but at least for our religion it's not a waiting game, but like kind of
we go to sleep.
Yeah, like it's more like sleep, which is also why when I watched the movie, the thing with hell really resonated with me because to be honest, I don't really believe in hell like that. I believe when you die, you're dead, and whether you're saved is whether you're going to go to heaven. I don't really think you're going to be eternally damned in a fiery hellscape forever. I just don't. I really don't like that. I don't know. Something it never ever sat right with me.
I thought hell was just like a separation from God.
Yeah, like exactly. Total. Like almost a physical thing, or like a spiritual thing. I never thought it would be like. I never thought, oh yeah, like it's a place you actually go to, and you're going to be completely tortured forever. Because also, like Satan, I thought he was supposed to be gone at the end of the world. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent. Yeah, so.
No, I totally agree. That whole concept of hell and burning, and I think Monty, we had a show about that. I think that your actions are more appropriate with what hell is. And that I know some people believe that hell is on earth. I don't believe that you're gonna pass away and you're gonna be burned somewhere. I don't believe that. I do think it is a way to live life accordingly and to think about what you do on a day-to-day basis. At least that's how I see it. The way that what you do on a day-to-day, or you're gonna die and you're gonna go to hell, I never really bought into that notion.
Well, universalism, they believe that humankind is created with an immortal soul, okay, which death cannot end. Um, so, or maybe a mortal soul that has to be resurrected and be preserved by God. So, which is very important because, again, sometimes, and I'm saying this maybe to those who are watching the show and thinking about, okay, I want to study this a little bit more. How do I go about? Where do I even begin? You need to. I almost feel like you have to take the time whenever you are doing a study to pay attention to the words that are being used and how they are being used, right? The concept of, and you guys brought it up, I was not going to go into it because we actually did a show on that. So for someone who wants to get more understanding of the doctrine of hell, please find we did a particular show on that. I don't remember which episode it is, but you can find it on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. The Bible talks about hell. In fact, this morning my brother called me early this morning and we were having a conversation on that very topic. um, but when you go to Isaiah 33, verse 14, I always send people to that text because if you understand that text, then everything that you thought you understood about consuming fire or about hell will change. The Bible said that the sinners in Zion, they were terrified, right? They were trembling. They had trembling grips the godless, right? And then he says, "Who of us can dwell in the consuming fire? Who of us can dwell in the everlasting burning?" That's a question. That's a question. Remember, they are trembling, they are terrified. And now the question is, who can dwell in that consuming fire? Well, guess what? The Bible answered that question. The very next verse in Isaiah 33, verse 15 says, "He who walks righteously and speaks what is right, who rejects gain from extortion and keeps his hand from accepting bribes, who stops his ears against plots of murders and shuts his eye against contemplating evil." It tells you who can who can dwell in that consuming fire. So then when you remember that, and now you start reading the Bible text that talks about either fire or burning bush or hell, you have to pay attention to the words that are being used, and not quickly the moment you say the word fire, automatically assume it's talking about the same fire that we and I we experience when we light up the stove, or a house is catch on fire, because the Bible's way of describing fire may be completely different. The Bible said God is a consuming fire in Hebrew 12, verse 29, but yet God doesn't burn up. When Moses was talking to God in the burning bush was not consumed. When Moses was before of God in Mount Sinai, and Exodus 24, verse 17, there was fire there, but Moses wasn't consumed. There's a river of fire in heaven. So you see the word fire all the time, consuming fire all the time. And it's funny that the thing that we are afraid of, the place we don't want to go, is the place of eternal burning and consuming fire, aka hell. But that place, according to the Bible, is God's very presence. Because the Bible said the righteous are transformed, just as Moses' face radiated after 40 days and God's glory. You find that in Exodus 34, verse 29 to 35. When Moses left the presence of God, his face radiated. And the people, when they saw him, they shrank back because of their wicked ways. The wicked are destroyed by the brightness of Christ coming. It's not that God Himself is just zapping people with fire. No, no, no. It's glory, His grandeur. It's there's something about, you can't stand in the presence of righteousness if you are wicked. I don't know if I'm making sense to somebody right now, right? It's almost as if, let's say you do good for someone, right? You do good for that person. Whatever they need, you're always there for them. You're always reaching out to them. You're always blessing them. And that person is contemplating evil against you, right? And the more they contemplate evil against you, the more you bless them. Eventually, if that person does have a conscience, what do you think is going to happen when you stand next to them? How are they going to feel? Are they going to be comfortable being next to you? Yes or no? Right? They're not going to feel comfortable being next to you, even though you yourself didn't do anything wrong to them. You're blessing them, you're doing good to them, but their own conscience is going to separate them from you. And that's how it is with God and us. That's the separation. Go ahead, guys. Cynthia?
I had a question. I know we have to move on, but based on your statement, and I'm not sure if it kind of linked to universalism. How do you explain Revelation chapter 20, verses 11 to 15 in that
Revelation
sense?
20, 11 to 15.
Well, for those in the
You want to
back,
put it
can
up?
you like see what those things are?
You want to put it up?
I'm
For those
sorry?
in
Not
the
all of
back,
us
can you
know what
explain?
Revelation
It, no, it talks
Revelation,
about the dead and the judge. Like, you know, how Revelation 20 talks about, you know, God judging. When he comes back, he'll judge, and then he'll consume
Correct.
the devil and his angels to
Correct.
the
Correct.
eternal hell of fire.
Notice.
Now,
Mhm.
based on what you just explained, how you explain
Beautiful question.
this,
All
you
right, so
know,
let's go to the text, right?
mm-hmm,
What's gonna be consumed?
mm-hmm.
What's gonna be consumed?
Oh, me, or
The devil and his
the
angels.
devil and his
Why are they
angels.
consumed? How are they
Mm-hmm.
how are they consumed?
Because I just, mm-hmm.
Eternal hell, which
Eternal
is
hell,
eternal
yes.
separate, they
Based
are
on the text.
eternally
Mm-hmm.
separated from God. The fire, the lake of fire, right? That we talk about. We also
Mm-hmm.
read in Revelation that God sits on his throne, and upon his throne, when it described the sea of fire right from the throne of God. So we can't assume the moment that we read. I think that's my point. We
Okay.
can't assume the moment that we read fire that is talking about that consuming fire, or the fire that we understand that the fire that can kill and destroy. You understand what I mean by that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because here in Revelation 20 verse 14, right, it
Mm-hmm.
says that death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death.
Mm-hmm.
What does that second death means? Remember, God put people to sleep all the time. And the Old Testament, when you read about Noah, God put people to sleep. That, a lot of people were not saved. They went to sleep. Throughout the annals of human history, God has put, it doesn't do it all the time, but there are times that God steps in and put people to sleep. That is the first death. The second death is what happened after the second return, where mankind, when we finally make that final decision that we don't want to have anything to do with God. That's the eternal separation. It's not God who killed us, it's we made that choice. Let me ask you this. How can death be killed? How can you kill death? What would you need to kill death?
God. I
I
was
would
just
say life. Right? Right? The opposite of death will be what? Life, right?
right.
So, let me put it this way. So, what would the lake of fire be? Does that give you an insight to why the Bible teaches that this fire occurs in the presence of the holy angels and of the Lamb? Go to Revelation 20, verse 14. Revelation 14, verse 10. I'm sorry. This is what we're talking about. This is a fire that is in the presence of God and the angels. And those angels are not consumed. God is not consumed. The only angels that are consumed are what? Those who don't want to have anything to do with God. And how are they consumed? They are consumed by the reality of their action, of the reality of who they are. Remember that when I told you, if you do something good for someone and you stand next to them, eventually what's going to happen, the conscience is going to do what? The conscience is going to get the best of them, hopefully. Well, there are some people who don't care no matter what, right? But if you do have a conscience, your conscience will get the very best of you, right? The wicked cannot stand in the presence of God, not because God doesn't want them to be there, but because they can't be there because of their own conviction.
Pastor,
Go ahead.
you're on a roll, and I thank you. But I want to. Which question are you answering? Like where are we?
Um,
How are we relating this to
She
universalism?
was she was she was talking about Revelation 20 verse 11 and 15 all the way to 15. What
Ah,
what I wanted her to understand is before we can answer Revelation 20, we need to go back to Revelation 14, because in Revelation 14 we see that fire, and where that fire is on the throne of God, right? So to understand it, you have to see where it's from. When Revelation 14:10, that fire is in the presence of the holy angels and of the Lamb, but they were not consumed. We got into this because somebody mentioned the word hell. Like I said, we did a show on hell already. We can always send you guys to that. Okay. So
Which
that's
one
what
you
that
mentioned is
was
episode
for.
9. I
So
do
let's,
have a question. I
yeah.
do have a question bringing us back to universalism. Thank you, Pastor. So I think earlier you mentioned Martin Luther and the fact that what he represents toward the overall church, and how even with that he missed something. Going back with evolution as a whole, we have seen tremendous evolution within pretty much every single field industry in the past 30 to 40 years. And that also, I would think, includes religion to some aspect. Now, do you think that for every doctrine that there are holes and gaps? I mean, we're
For
talking about
every
universalism within the Christian. Let's take Christianity. We're not going
mhm.
into anything else now. We're talking about universalism. I have to think that 30, 40 years from now, there's going to be way more other doctrine, because it is based on one, interpretation, two, evolution, even within that Bible. And I don't think that's something that we can escape from. Because if every single area is going through the motion as we understand more and more, there's going to be room for people to dive in more and get, it's just part of who we are. And there's going to be more
Absolutely,
doctrine.
and absolutely, and to that I will say, and that's the reason I said to you before, I believe in science, I believe in the Bible, and I believe in our experience. When we use those three threads together, not separately, together, we do justice to God. When we separate the Bible, right? If I separate the Bible from people's experience, I'm doing them. I don't honor God the way that I should. If I separate the Bible from science, I don't honor God the way that I should. Because listen, God created science. He created the universe. He's the creator, and He gave us science so that men will be without excuse. That's what He say, because He knows eventually, as science continue to grow more and more, our understanding will be better and better. And I realize the more you understand science, the more you can become closer to God, not away from God. It's amazing how you can have Christian scientists and they will use the Bible just as much as they do their research and anything else, because their research validate a lot of the things that the Bible said or mentioned, and here they are finding out. I mean, when you look at the human eye, for example, if you believe in evolution, as if there's no God, there's no creator, then scientifically you can't look at the human eye and say you're right. There can be no creator. The human eye is such a proof that there has to be a creator to put something like that together for it to operate the way it does. Right?
The evolution that I was referring to is not the evolution of necessarily, somebody saying, oh, this doesn't exist. What I'm saying is it's literally, whether we like it or not, the world is evolving. So, and when things evolve, guess what? Our mind hopefully evolves with it. You think differently. What we used to use 30 years ago versus what we use now is different. We're
Mm-hmm.
growing. And we're
Mm-hmm.
growing in every single aspect. If you look
Including,
around from 30 years,
including,
including
and
religion,
yes,
And as
yes.
you see universalism, it's only fair to say 30 years from now, there's going to be more and more doctrine like universalism.
But that doctrine was in the third century. This is not new. That's what I was
No, but
saying.
I'm saying is more people are going to, or getting out of their bubble. Like, for
Mm-hmm.
instance, when you take me, for example, I grew up Catholic. I'm still Catholic, but the way I used to think 30 years ago versus the way I think now, I'm allowing myself to think outside of, being taught. So people are doing that more and more. And whenever you have that, there's the potential of seeing more gap within our Christian Bible.
Correct. And let me just say this. And again, this is my own personal point of view. And then we'll go to Melody. She's been waiting patiently. Um, I'm not afraid of people diving into the Bible or diving into science and learning more and more and more. In fact, I welcome it. I love it. That's the whole point. Remember, I told you God doesn't reveal himself at once. He gives us a little glimpse at a time. And I will say, listen, from the time of Jesus to where we are now, we have evolved significantly and is understanding of God. So do I expect us to all of a sudden in 2021 to just stop and say we have everything we ever need to hear from God? We know everything we ever need to know from God? Absolutely not. God is not done yet. He's still opening up our eyes to understand him more and more. So yeah, absolutely. But I will say, I will caution you guys that just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. Sometimes we do make that mistake when someone come out with something that is new or fresh. All of a sudden, the old ways no longer matter, or the old thinking no longer matter because this is so new, this is so fresh. No, it's new and fresh right now. But let's take it. Let's dive into it. Let's understand it. Let's compare it with everything else that was written before and see how they can come together. If they don't come together in such a way, then perhaps we need to dive even more, study even more. I encourage people to study even more. Absolutely. Melody?
Um, this is kind of why I always like started off what I was saying with like this is just from my current experience and like mindset because as Tati Patty was talking about, humans constantly go through paradigm shifts where like our entire way of thinking completely changes, and then how we perceive the world changes from that shift. Um, and that could mean that universalism gets more popular. And it doesn't necessarily like even though I don't understand and I disagree with something that they say, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong because we don't know God. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like it's really like the way that you perceive God is the way that you're gonna serve him, if that makes sense. And if you're doing that to the best of your ability, then humans can't fault you for that.
By
That's what,
beholding, by beholding,
Perfectly
we
said.
become change. You serve God based on your knowledge of Him, based on how you understand God. There are people who think, in order for me to please God, I have to do sacrifices. I have to do X, Y,
Mhm.
and Z. I have to get be in church on time because there's an angel who's taking notes. And if I'm not there on time, God is writing it in the book of memory where He's always going to remember all the bad things that I've done. So they serve God and they are afraid of that God and they do everything to please God because they are afraid because God, you don't want to be on the other side because he will crush you, he will kill you. And so they serve a God that they are afraid of. But there are also people who serve a God that they love, a God that where they understand that perfect love casts out fear. And so they come to an understanding the relationship that God wants for me is not a relationship based on fear, but it's a relationship where I can be authentic, where I can be real, even when I fall. God already knows that I fall, but I can be real with Him and say, Lord, I'm struggling with this. I need you to help me. Help me. Put some people in my life. Help me figure this thing out so that I can be better and move on. You don't get stuck in your sin, but you confess it to God and then you try to move on. You try to bring people around you or put people in place around you or do whatever you have to do to kind of leave some of those things behind. And as you do those things, God will give you the Holy Spirit to enable you. He's not going to do them for you, but He will give you the Holy Spirit now to enable you to do better. Markel?
So a couple things. Patty, I agree with you as far as the loopholes with different religions and things of that sort. it reminds me of this game that people used to play, Haitians play at socials and things like that. When you line up and someone at the very end starts a sentence and says something, and by the time it gets to the end of this line, it's supposed to be the same sentence. We've actually done this in the
Yeah,
communication
it's an
class that I had
icebreaker
in college.
usually.
Yeah, usually it's an icebreaker. But what the reason why that stands out is because as the message continues to go along, things get interpreted differently. And whatever you think you heard or thought you heard without the, because you're not supposed to turn around and say it again. You're supposed to say it just one time. So whatever you think you heard or thought you heard, you now just formulate your own opinion or thought about it and say it to the next person. Personally, to me, that's why there's so many different religions and so many different beliefs and so many different thoughts, because a lot of people hear certain things which they feel is right or wrong, or they want to agree with and don't want to agree with, and then they just go with it, and it's just translated word of mouth. It just keeps going and going and going. I always have this envision of what God is. God is loving. God is merciful, right? We talk about that. His forgiveness, his grace, it's so, it's everything to me, right? Being the sinner that I am, just throwing that out there. I've never sinned before, but just so you guys know.
Right.
But the reason why I say that is because I feel like sometimes we kind of hide the fact that God is not nothing to play with as well. Like, you really got to take a look at when people didn't obey him, what happened. Yes, there's mercy and yes, there's grace, but it wasn't like okay, you didn't mean to do a slap on the wrist. It was things happened to you when you didn't follow the commandments or the laws that God really put out there. So I'm not going to go ahead and say he's evil and he's cruel and nothing like that. But you got to keep in mind that he's not just flowers and dandelions and dillies. Like, he's not just everything is okay and happy Gilmore. Like, there's certain things that will happen to you if you don't abide by his laws. And that's not to be make you fear him, but you got to have structure. Just as parents, all of us are parents here, except for my nieces who better not be parents. But
Never.
it's like you're gonna have children. You see what I'm saying? And you want them to be happy. You want them to have a better life than what you had. But in order to have structure, to structure them at a young age, you got to set lines, you got to set laws or boundaries or whatever you want to call it. And I think that's what God is.
Margaret, I couldn't agree with you more and also disagree with you even more. So
But
let me just say this. I do remember a time where I too felt that in fact I shared this in my church that I used to do series where I talk about God in such a way, and I will use the deep bass voice, and I will talk about the day of the Lord, and I will have music playing in the background, very sentimental kind of songs that will drive you so. I mean, it will get you so afraid that the only thing you want to do is run to God and lay on the floor and say, Lord, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But I realize that only drives people to God out of fear. But the God of the Bible doesn't want that from you. He wants you out of love. And there's a major difference between fear and love.
absolutely,
And so
absolutely.
when we're gonna use our children again, because God, we can consider him as a father figure or as a mother figure, okay?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so when we talk about sin, right? I used to think that, and the devil said it to Adam and Eve. The devil said, "There's nothing wrong with sin. The problem is not sin. The problem is with God. God is the one who has a problem with sin. It's not. There's nothing wrong with sin. God has the problem with sin. And so, if we believe that, then it's almost as if now we have to find a way to please that God, right? Because
mm-hmm.
he has the problem with sin. But in reality, that's not true. That's a lie. It's not that God has a problem with sin. God knows what sin will do to us. And so, what does it do? So, let's put it this way again. I'm going to use some science terminology in a way. God comes to us, and what does he do? He passes judgment upon us. People are afraid of the word judgment. But I said, well, when you go to the doctor, it's the same thing. The doctor pronounced judgment against you. When the doctor diagnosed you, that's a judgment call. He diagnosed your situation, your malady, your sickness, but he doesn't end there. God doesn't just diagnose us or pass judgment on us and leave us to ourselves. He passes judgment and then he comes back with the remedy. He says, I know what I'm going to have to do. After I pass judgment on you, I find you to be what? Sick. All of us are sick with what? With this thing called sin. We have this disease that we are born with. We come with it, right? So none of us can come before God and say, well, no, all of us, we are dying from the moment we are born. We are dying. And God said, okay, I'm going to come. I'm going to provide a remedy. And he gave us his son, Jesus Christ. And I used that terminology before. Jesus became the perfect bone marrow donor, where he actually took our place. He took the pain and the suffering so that he can give us life, right? But the doctor didn't stop there. The doctor now gives us a prescription. After you had the surgery, he gives us the prescription. He gives us the Holy Word. And he says, now I'm giving you the Holy Word so that you will know how to follow me. And so when you look at the Word of God, everything is centered around love. It's really simple when you think of it. Everything that God did is centered around love. Even when he puts people to sleep, it was centered around love. So when you look at it from that concept, right? You go, for example, you say you're a father, right? And your son or daughter, if they continue to play in the street because there's so many cars passing back and forth, they eventually gonna get hit by a car. What are you to do as a father? You talk to them, right? You get stern with them. In the Old Testament, God was stern with the children of Israel. He screamed at them when he has to. He pulled them when he has to because they were facing the danger and they refused to see it. He pulled. Go ahead.
So I'm going to agree and disagree with you now, right? Since this is a term that you use, let's go ahead and coin it. Mello and Wendy, y'all okay over there? Something y'all want to say?
I'm trying so hard to keep up. Y'all can go.
Okay.
I was like,
So go ahead, Mark.
So here's what I'm saying. Like, I agree with the fact that yes, God is a God of love. He doesn't want you to love him out of fear. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I am saying is that when you do sin, just like you said, you get sick and the doctor passes judgment. So God passes judgment. But now there is the part where you have to repent for this sin. So now that you're sick, there's the part you get the prescription, like you mentioned, and you got to be like, okay, I don't want to be sick like this anymore. I want to take the prescription. That's when you go back to God, or that's when you go to God. And I never say that God turns his back on you, but God does have a thing that he does. I don't know. I'm not God. I gotta talk to him about it when I get there. Amen. But like when you sin and you're not asking for forgiveness, it's not just okay in his book. Think like it's a Bible verse, right? I'm bringing you this Bible verse. His angels, and this is people that's like with him. So let's just say it's his road dogs that's with him. He even says this in the Bible, 2 Peter 2 verse 4, International Version, if you'd like to join. For if God did not spare angels when they sinned, I'm sorry, God did not spare angels when they sinned. So he didn't spare them.
Mm-hmm.
He sent them to
Mm-hmm.
hell.
Mm-hmm.
And you could sit here and be like, oh, well, he could have just been like, oh, all right, you sinned, we cool, don't worry about it. But there's a line there that's illustrated to show you that if you do sin, it's not a fear thing. It's not a, oh, you'll never get back in my good graces. But if he can send his own angels to hell, people, to me, there's a hierarchy
Let
of
me ask you again.
God.
I think you're quoting the text. You're quoting the text, but you have to take the text in relationship to the rest of the Bible, right?
Okay.
Paul also said, "Why can separate me from the love of God?" Didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Absolutely nothing can separate us from God's love."
Correct.
It's not God that separates us, it's sin that separates us. And what I mean by that is, if I continue to smoke, right? If I continue to smoke and I develop lung cancer is not God's punishment on me. Lung cancer happens as a result of
Of
me
sin.
smoking.
Of
It's
course.
not God who's inflicting the pain because now he turned his back on me. So now I'm going to develop lung cancer. No, God creates his law, and his laws are the foundation upon which reality is built. Whenever we fall outside of that, we will reap the consequences of that, not because God is doing it. I think the difference is
So wait. So
God is not doing it. We
I'm
fall outside of that line.
I never said that he was. I
I
never
don't
said
think
that
that's
he
what
was
Markel was
doing it.
saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I never said
Yeah.
that God was causing you to have the pain and doing. You ever had a parent, and if my parents is watching, I'm sorry. You ever had a parent that pretty much was like, "I'm beating you out of love, like I'm beating you because I don't want you to do what you're doing, and I love you so much that I want you to stop doing that because I know what happens when you continue doing that." So I'm not saying that him
So
sending you
how
to
does God beat us?
so I'm not saying that him sending you to hell is
Yeah.
the punishment. What I'm saying is because he knows what sin is and what it does to you.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
If you do sin, he's telling you where you would go in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
And he knows what that place is because that's where Lucifer is, that's where some of the angels are, because he cast them out of heaven when they sinned. I
Mm-hmm.
know what's going on over there. I'm trying to tell you, don't sin
Yeah.
because I know what's happening. But if you choose to sin, I will send you there.
Again,
I know
you you saying you're
I'm,
saying
I'm
I. That's where I differ from you. I don't believe it is God who's sending you anywhere.
So I send
I mean,
myself.
you're sending yourself
well,
with
Hold
I
on,
know
hold on,
Mello has something to
hold on,
say,
hold on,
but I'm
hold on.
loving this
Your
because
choice is the one that's sending you
yeah,
there. Not God.
because of the choice you made. There's
You made the
consequences to your
choice. The
actions. I'm
Yes,
sorry,
consequences
Patty.
exactly.
yes. So it's
no,
not
it's
God
okay.
who's sending you.
Mello
Your
has
choice
something to
is sending you
say,
there. Go
but
ahead,
I'm
Mello.
loving this because it goes back to what I'm saying. It's different interpretation, and hence the reason why we have so many religion and so many doctrines. Mello, your time.
That was actually like a really great segue because when we were talking about evolution, it reminded me that when we think about evolution, we kind of forget that evolution is not a like scientific, at least scientific evolution of like the body is not um a purposeful thing. Like natural selection happens like randomly. Like our body does it without us thinking.
Mhm.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that as we get further, we're automatically better, if that makes sense. Like
Mhm, mhm.
our farming technology is so much better now, but we're killing the planet with it.
Yeah, yeah.
We used to be much better at protecting the planet, and our resources are dwindling because of it. So just because we evolve in thought doesn't necessarily mean we're getting closer to God, if that
Yes, yes.
and
I think. Go ahead, Mello.
and just something on like the natural consequences. When we think about the commandments, we forget like the implications that they have. Like we think about them in relationship to like how our relationship to God is. We don't think about our relationship to other people.
Mm.
When
Mhm.
you kill someone, their whole family is affected by it. Their friends, their
Mhm.
family, and you're
Mhm.
affected too.
Hello.
Mhm.
Fundamentally, your brain changes when that becomes an option for you.
Mhm.
So I think like there are natural consequences to the sins that we commit.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
like
Correct.
when you guys are going at it, I just kept thinking like I never find
That
I was like I don't know, maybe it's blind faith, but I'm like God's design is perfect to me. Everything we do, most of the time I'm like it's our own fault. You chose to lie, nothing provoked you, and now you do what's your own consequences of your actions. And I agree with what both of you guys are saying. I feel like meshing the ideas together, you know? Like and the thing like with people sinning and stuff, I'm like it really is just you. Like you have your own free will at the end of the day. Because I don't believe hell is a place, I think based on how you live your life on earth, I really feel like there's only three things to do. You love yourself, you love God, and you love other people. And then that will dictate what happens to you when you pass away, whether you're going to come back or not. I feel like if you have a basic understanding of those three things and you decide to treat everyone with love, respect, and care, you're not really going to worry about all these little trivial things. Of course, based on your religion, it might affect the way you walk in your life. But Auntie Patty, I remember one time you said like religion is just like choosing a bank. And I was like, I kind of felt it though, because I'm like, I really can't
That was on Monday.
I really I was like, there really is we're arguing all these things like universalism, all these different things, but at the end of the day, it really is just based on how you decide you want your life to go. How you decide you want because I mean I'm Seventh-day Adventist, but next week I'd be like, you know what? I bang with the Catholics, you know? I'ma just, adopt how they live their life.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, I'm not becoming Catholic. It was a joke, but like sorry.
But I see what you're saying. And I mean it's a great discussion and all. I love the word where the Bible said the wages of sin is death. Right? Wages. The word is used is wages. Why? Something that you actually have to do what? You have to work for. You earn it. And if you earn it, God is not going to prevent you from experiencing it because that's what you earn. At the end of the day, as the ladies puts it, we all have that thing called freedom of choice, and God will respect your freedom of choice. The difference, I think, when we talk about universalism, is that there is no such thing as free will. That eventually God will overcome your free will and save you despite of you. The Bible is saying it differently. The Bible is saying no. God does have the power, but he doesn't use it that way. He allows you to make that choice how you want to spend eternity. One day, I think maybe next year, we'll come back with hell again to kind of try to understand, is this a legitimate place or is it complete separation from God? And that's what hell is. So we will come back to that as well. Any final thoughts? Pat, you wanted to say something beside the bank scenario?
No. Yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, I agree with both you and Michael. I think both of you had valid points. Hence, what I've been saying. Um, the more you dive into the Bible, the more you realize there are definitely areas that will have different interpretation, and that's for anything. You take one sentence and you have 10 people around, and people will give you different interpretation. And now, as we're trying also to be more liberal, as we're trying to not hold back, I think these things existed back then. I think we were just a little bit more conservative. But at the end, you said something to me. At least that's how I try to live my life with. Love conquers all. If you love and you know what it is to love and how you're supposed to love, my thing is follow what you feel it's in your heart. Understand what you're following. And if
Mhm.
that's what you want to follow, then that's on you. But try to understand what you're following. I'm not here to tell anybody they should try follow this versus that. But understand what you're following and love conquers all. Know what's right for you.
Mhm. By beholding, we become change. It's simple as that. By beholding, you become changed. I will always say that, use that phrase, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If you behold anything of value, whatever that is, that's who you're going to be. That's who you're going to worship. That's who you're going to act. I mean, that's how you're going to act. Whatever you behold is what you will worship. Cynthia?
I had a question.
Okay.
My question is, let's say you did all that, right?
Uh-huh.
You follow everything and found out that there is no heaven, no hell. Would you continue to do it?
What do you mean? We find out. When do you find out? At which point?
No, no, no. Let's say you live you do everything you said according, you love everyone, but at the end, there's always a prize, correct? You're doing things because there's something going to be given, and which is
See,
eternal life. However
that's
way you want to view it.
yeah,
Now,
that's
you found out all this time there's nothing to receive. Would you continue to live that life?
see for me, I don't really I hope I hope I don't say this the wrong way. I don't really care about that. It's the now and the way I live my life right now that really matters, because you see we tend to do X, Y, and Z because we expect this at
Exactly.
the end. No, listen, to know what is right and to do it not is a sin. If I know I can bless someone right now and I choose not to do it, I'm hurting myself as well. I'm not just hurting that person.
Mhm.
If I know there's a neighbor next door who's struggling with groceries and I'm throwing food out every day, I'm hurting myself as well. And I'm not just hurting my neighbor. So
Mhm.
if it's you don't do right. I think there's a Christmas song like that. You're doing good because you expect Santa to come at the end to give you gifts. No, no, just do good for goodness sake. We were created to
Mhm.
love. We were created to cherish each other. Do that. This is the season of love. I'm like, man, please. Christmas is not the season of love. Every day is the season of love.
And, and I think
Every-
that's what Patty was saying. To live life at the
yes,
end of the day, the
yes.
way you show love reflect. Someone will say, "Hey, how can I be like Monday, Cynthia, all of us?" Because the way we live a life, and I think that's what God wants from us.
And
Live
Cynthia,
our life to reflect His kindness, His love,
Cynthia,
His mercy, and
this
grace.
is
Yes,
such
sir.
a powerful statement, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's not going to be what religion we belong to when
Yes.
we're here on earth. God is going to say, I was naked and you clothed me. I
Mhm.
was hungry and you fed me. It's going to be about my relationship with those around me. That's what's going to determine whether or not I had a relationship with God. It's not about religion.
And
Although some people will say, but if I didn't become this, or if I didn't become a Christian, or if I didn't do this, would I still go to heaven? Listen, it's not up to me.
Uh-huh.
It's up to God. All I'm challenging you is to be good and do good and love as much as you can. We'll go to Melody and Wendy, and then Markel, and then we'll finish up with Pat.
I think about that is like if the only thing stopping you from killing someone is your relationship with God, then it doesn't matter anyways. Like it's not that strong. There like naturally I think there are certain things that like should make you feel like
Basic empathy.
basic empathy. Like this is something that we're
Mhm.
born with, something that grows with us. If the only thing keeping you in line is laws or like attitudes, like then there's something wrong. And we can blame it on nature all we want, but I don't think it's human nature to be evil and to want to do evil just for evil's sake.
Yeah, and of course, there's always going to be temptations, but there's also that always a temptation to not do something at the end of the day. Like usually, sometimes when you know you're about to do something wrong,
You have
you
that
have
thought.
like a feeling in your body, and it like makes you feel a little icky. You're like, why do I feel the need, or why did I even think about doing this? I really do think, depending on how you choose to walk your life, how you decide you want to lead it is what's gonna, I want to say, be your saving grace, but your motivator. You should
Mhm.
want good things because it's gonna help someone else, you know?
Mm-hmm. Okay. You're on mute. Yeah, we can't hear you. We'll come back to you. Let's go to Pat for a minute.
For me, I think you all said it, and I've been preaching this for ever since I've started with the show. To me, humanitarian ways precede everything. I love God, and I try my best to do things as God would want me to do it. But your values and your humanitarian ways precede everything. That's why I keep on reminding people religion is man made. I understand the concept of doctrine. I'm finishing up my PhD. I have to go to a school to understand certain things, understand why they were put in place. But I think sometimes we get blinded by the religion and focus less on what's truly important. As you stated, Pastor D, if your neighbor is going through something and you focusing on the fact that that neighbor is Catholic and I'm Seventh Adventist and I'm not going to help, there's an issue with that. Our human ways should supersede anything else. That's what God wants us to love, and love conquers all. The Bible doesn't say one thing about a religion. And I think as human beings, we forget that. We look into the differences instead of understanding why we are here. And I agree with you, Pastor D, in that I live my life as if today was my last day. I don't
Yeah.
know what hell or heaven bring. I know that I'm in this life and I'm going to try my best to make the best of it according to what I believe. And that belief is love conquers all.
Yeah. Well, we'll go to Markel. Hopefully his mic is working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. I use this as a coach a lot when I'm coaching players, and I think this analogy actually will go if I don't know how big, but I think it would change the world. I think it'll make the world a better place. All these different religions will be a better place, and it simply states that five a fist is better than five individual fingers. So as a team, if we can work together, we can accomplish anything than if all five players or all five fingers are trying to do something all at one time. Now, there's going to be times where you need to separate and do things, but together, and you know, the word unity and all this other type of stuff, I
Yeah.
think stands strong. I think that's the way, in my belief, God intended it. And let me tell you why I believe that real quick is because God created Adam. He's created all these animals, and all these animals had other animals, and they were two by two, and all this other type of stuff. And he saw that Adam was by himself. So he created a woman, not only just for the reproduction of things, but so he wouldn't be alone. So when you talk about religion and everyone being separate in different religions, when you talk about politics and it's either you're red or blue, there's a lot of things that not just America, but that things on earth is set, is forcing you to pick this or that. Either you were with us or you with them. You're
Mm-hmm.
separating everyone all the time. And that's why there's so much problems, in my opinion, period. If we simplify a lot of things and make everyone unified and we come together and let's say we put all religions in a bowl and we pick out one and say, all right, everyone is this one religion going forward. Even something like that, I think the world would just be a better place if there wasn't so much individualism and a lot more unity.
And in closing, I want to say, Markel, that the religion that God prescribes to all of us is definitely found in James 1:27, where it says that the religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and widows and their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted, tainted by the world, the appearance of excess. So if we live by this, It doesn't really matter whether or not whatever you call your religion to be. This is it right here. Again, it's a symbol of love. Looking after orphans, family, looking after the widows. That's a symbol of love. It basically is saying look after people who can't look after themselves. Reach out to the homeless and feeding them and taking care of them and those who are sick. And I mean, all of those are things that we can do to make the world a better place. Because at the end of the day, God is not going to say, tell me about the religion that you're from. He's going to say, what have you done? What have you done to the least of my people? Yes, Wendy, Melody.
God's an anti-capitalist. It's right there.
She just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah.
Well, we tried that, but it didn't work as a society. Okay, Karl Marx. We'll go back to that. It didn't
We
work.
should talk.
Okay,
We don't
the
talk about
reason
that.
why again it won't work is because human beings are what? Selfish. We are selfish, but individually we can make it work. If
So,
each of
money,
us, if each
Pastor.
of us, yeah, absolutely. There's
So,
a
Pastor,
pastor for it.
with that said, if you have a universalist doing just that, caring after one another, are they not saved? Will
You
they
see,
not?
you just separate one religion. We
No, I'm
saying
just no, I'm bringing the universalist because this was about universal. So will they not be saved?
who
Question mark.
who will save the universalism and the Catholics and the Baptists, and it's God who's going to do the saving. What God is going to look at is going to look at my life. Did my life reflect what I was preaching? Did I live a life that was pleasing to God? Did I live a life where I was loving my neighbors as I love myself? That's what's going to determine what happened to me. Cynthia, and then we'll close.
One thing we have to understand, God doesn't look at one thing of our
Yeah.
lives. He looks like the
Yes.
trajectory of our life. Like sometimes as, individual, as human being, we think because of that one particular action, we are lost. He's a merciful God. He look at the trend of your life, not that one thing that you did that caused you to separate. But again, his grace
Mhm.
is always here and then waiting for us, because if you knock, guess what? The door will open. If you ask, you shall
Mhm.
receive. So as human, trying to be the best human you
Yeah.
can be, and whether you want to be religious or not, because that's what he asked for. The best and the only commandment is love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you love yourself, you will treat everybody what? Like you treat yourself.
You
Correct.
see, I've been saying this, so now I can form my own religion.
If that's what pleases you, your heart, Pat, go for it, girl.
I'm just saying.
You
Hey,
heard
go
it
for
here
it.
live on the remedy. Family, this is it. We just want to take a moment to say thank you to Laura Tyler's and Norma and Angie and Fabiola and Louis and Eddie and everybody else, Brittany and everyone else who came on the program today and participated in the discussion. As you know, this is our grand season finale. We will not have a show next week for the next 2 weeks. We will be off the grid, but we want to wish you not only a Merry Christmas, but we will also want to wish you a Happy New Year. So we have a young girl here who's celebrating her birthday today. So we just want to take a moment to tell you we love you and we want to wish you a happy birthday.
Happy
And may God
birthday.
bless you with many, 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 many more. Say happy birthday, everybody.
Happy
Happy birthday,
birthday,
Laura.
Layla. You're
Thank you.
welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, family, thank you so much for another beautiful shows. We will see you again.
Hold on,
And
hold on. I do have a special thank you that I
oh,
want
Oh
to say.
wait. Sorry, Patty.
Yes.
Happy birthday to Uncle Bob too. You got to
Oh,
remember
yes,
Uncle
that's
Bob
true.
and say
Happy
birthday
birthday
is
to
Mello.
Uncle Bob. I guess,
Is Ayla.
Ayla, you
yeah.
gonna say happy birthday, Uncle Bob?
Yeah, happy birthday, Uncle
Happy
Bob.
birthday, Uncle
Happy
Bob.
birthday, Uncle Mom.
That's so cute. And I want to say a special thank you to your wife, Kate. Kate has done a wonderful job spreading the word, even though she doesn't want to really be seen, but she has done such a wonderful job helping backstage. And I
Yeah.
know we don't take the time out to really. I know we said thank you to all of the members here, but I want to take the time to say a special thank you for her because she has really done a tremendous job to trying to share the word, even though she's not necessarily in the chat with us. So a special thanks to Kate.
Amen. Amen. Thank you again. Thank you, Pat. We love you, family, and we wish you the very best. And we'll see you again next year. Male.